Ladies and gentlemen, we're with a guy. I finally found out that this gentleman I've been seeing all along, and he has some valuable information for us. A lot of you in Toronto here would know this face when you see it, but so without further ado, I'd ask you to introduce yourself.
My name is Selwyn Henry. My nickname, most popular name that people know me by is the Doc. I arrived in Canada on the 28th of August, 1967. I was a skilled biochemical technician when I came from England. I started working at the Toronto General Hospital in the lab there. That's where I met Clyde McNeil, and he and I became friends. And we went on to become roommates in St. Jamestown, in the Wesley Parliament, Bloor, Sherborne area. There I met a number of Trinidadians and other Caribbean residents of that neighborhood. Amongst them was Alvin Thomas, Junior Parker, Ronald Reiner. Ronald Reiner came and met us there. Roland, his brother, Alvin Thomas, Guy Guerra, that was about and a number of other students who were attending UFT. From that, I got to know Neville Glanville. At that time, he was part of, I think it's primarily a cricket team. And Neville was more interested in getting back into soccer.
So now, the meat of the thing now, because as I told you in speaking to you prior to this, is that I always had you more on the Trini side associated when I came around the Iere and stuff, not knowing you were part of West Indies. Now, some months ago, you told me I've never left. So knowing that there was a split, and that's where I'm at right now with the project, could you give us a kind of sequence now of what transpired? They attributed to the contrast competition where everybody was kind of finding the identity of Barbados.
The conflict, if we want to call it that, came before contrast.
So I don't want to call it a conflict.
I know it was. And it was basically what had happened is that naturally Neville being the captain, the leader, was eagerly recruiting players that he knew and players that he was in touch with back in Jamaica. And so once they came here and there were opportunities, because at that time there were some semi-pro leagues. There was a time when the West Indies team fielded, I would say 7 or 8 players in the first team of Trinidad background. And then you mentioned Miles Sosa, Alan Moniz, Clyde was West Indies Clyde McNeil was West Indies goalkeeper during that early period before Pele came and replaced Clyde McNeil. What I did not like about I had no problem with the decision to form a Trini-based team, but I thought that the arguments that were being used were not totally truthful, because Trinidadians dominated the West Indies teams in that early year or two. So that I thought that if you want to form an Iere team, fine. That I had no problem with that, but I was not going to leave based on the argument. Are you hearing me now?
You're still off.
And you know who else came? He came after me because he came in the 70s. Earl Fu. Earl Fu is another major Trini baller who went to United, and that's where he stayed.
Clyde? So you were close with him, see him evolve into this big promoter with Antoine and...
I was part and parcel of all of that. That whole, from the Club Trinidad, to the shows that he and Neville were doing at Ontario Place. So Clyde is one who should be remembered as someone who made a major contribution to the cultural life not only Club Trinidad, but all the other promotional activities that when he and Neville and Roy were engaged in bringing key bands from the Caribbean.
What two things you and
So
Glanville had?
we had an excellent bond. Like I said, going back to the early days of United, and because a lot of the guys, working class guys, coming to Neville, kind of were looking for that kind of bonding and support. And I was there, and Neville was inclined to push me into the situation, talk to this one, and talk to that one, and talk to the,
If you had to wrap it up in terms of the history here.
Starting with the Contrast League, which was a very competitive in-house league that most of the Caribbean teams, and there were quite a few Caribbean teams, Canadian teams, Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto, has changed over the years simply because you had much more skillful ballers coming into the community and committing themselves to those teams. So that they with the change in immigration pattern and immigration flow, that was a likely occurrence, and that's what we see with all the sporting activities. I remember seeing a number of the interviews that you've done, and I said, this is a wonderful archive that Bridget is creating here, and I am all for us saving our history.
Right, so, well, Selwyn, Mr. Duck, thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.